I'm so excited today to introduce a woman who has spent decades helping leaders understand one powerful truth that leadership is not just about strategy or authority, it is about connection. Karen Hall is an emotional intelligence leadership coach. She is a humorous motivational keynote speaker. She is an international best-selling author, and she is what many executives affectionately call the CEO whisperer. She has more than 40 years of experience in media, entrepreneurship, leadership, and communication. She has helped individuals and organizations strengthen trust, improve communication, build cultures, and communities where people feel seen, valued, and empowered to thrive. She is the CEO of Momentum Media. She's the founder and editor in chief of the Global Women's and Latin Journals with the Los Angeles Tribune. She's an executive producer of global live and virtual broadcasts that reach audiences across the world. She is the host of multiple inspiring podcasts, including the Hero Within podcast, which is ranked in the top 2.5% globally, and she shares powerful stories of resilience, healing, and hope. And through her work, she continues to remind us that empathy is not weakness. It is one of our greatest strengths that we can develop. Today, she's going to bring her unique blend of emotional intelligence, neuroscience, humor, communication psychology, and practical tools that we need right now. Her keynote is titled Leadership is Love in Action: How Emotionally Intelligent Leaders Build Trust, Psychological Safety, and High Performing Teams. Karen will share how emotionally intelligent leadership creates stronger teams, deeper trust, greater resilience, and healthier workplace cultures. So get ready for some practical insights, some memorable stories, some laughter, some strategies that you can begin to use immediately. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Karen Hall.
Thank you, Dr. Anna Thomas. I am so grateful to be a part of Women Who Lead Summit because, we are noticing that there is a difference between the way that men lead and the way that women lead. And I find it all so fascinating. I'm Karen Hall. I'm an emotional intelligence leadership coach, and I've worked with several leaders, men and women, who have been trying to figure out how to communicate with each other. And I think this has been an age-old issue that we have been trying to learn how to communicate with each other in life, not just in business. But because there have been so many struggles, and sometimes people have said stereotypical things like, "Oh, that's just the way that it is." Women are this way or men are that way. And there has been a time when there wasn't a lot of progress that was made in understanding. But now that we understand how the brain operates and we can actually do the functional magnetic resonance imaging, we can see how the brain lights up and we can see physiological differences between men and women. So I like to talk about how leadership is love in action. And a lot of people wonder, like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, when we lead from a place of love, we lead from a place of empathy. And empathy is so critical in understanding anyone, not just the genders, between understanding, the differences that way, but in understanding each other. And one of the fascinating things about empathy is it's a higher functioning part of the brain that we have to access to be able to have empathy. So for example, if you are feeling very escalated, if somebody says something maybe, or something, maybe you have a thought about something or something happens, our emotions can start to escalate, and we can start to have thoughts that maybe we're feeling fear. Maybe we don't even know we're feeling fear, but we would say triggered is the common word that people use. But whatever the stress is, and our emotions are rising, it's very difficult to access empathy because the amygdala part of our brain is what is activated. It's just firing, firing. And this is the area of the brain that has memory stored from the past. And our brain all of a sudden goes into survival mode. Some people call it the primitive part of the brain. There's different words that people use to describe this. But what happens is that we are now more worried about survival than we are about anything else. So when we talk about leadership is love in action, how can we use that empathy? the first thing that we have to do is we have to be able to regulate our emotions. Well, a lot of times when I talk to people about their brains and about the neuroscience that is involved, they'll say, I don't really understand what you're talking about. This is all so new to me, and I'm not really into science, don't really understand the whole thing. So I thought I would just share a little story about me, and I thought this might relate to some of you who are hearing this. So I had I was having a problem with my computer, and so I called the IT people, and they I couldn't figure out how to do what they wanted me to do. So they said, "Can we shadow you?" So I let them shadow me, and they said, "Why do you have 100 tabs open on your computer?" And I thought, well, why not? I can find everything I need as a researcher, as a writer, as a public speaker. I'm looking at lots of different sources, and I have documents that I'm working from and documents that I'm comparing it to. And so I have a lot of tabs open. and and so when that was so funny to me because it was a man that was helping me on the IT, and in his masculine brain, he just thought, why not just have the tab that you're working on? So when my husband and I have had conversations about this, he comes and sees all the tabs open. He's like, I don't know how you can think like that. I don't know how you can function with all those tabs open. I think that's very similar to the way that the female brain works and the masculine brain works. And so I'm going to use these terms interchangeably: a woman, a man, a female brain, a feminine brain. I'm going to use them interchangeably. But what is happening, and I think this is very important to understand, is that in a female brain, the hemispheres, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, the logical and the emotional, have so many more neural pathways that there's cross wiring and connection between the hemispheres. So it's very easy for us to go from one thing to another. And when we talk about these differences in the brain, there's also much higher language processing in a female brain. So it's the way that we're wired. It's the way that our brains were created. It's not something that is only socialized, although there is a lot of things that are impacted because of the way that we are socialized. And so if I have all of this cross connectivity going on in my brain, and I think one thought and then I go to another thought, and they all seem to be correlated to each other. You may have heard the term that a woman has a spaghetti brain because everything seems to connect. And a man has a brain like in boxes, like a thought is in a box. And so there was a woman who was traveling with her husband, and she was a client of mine, and she was having a lot of trouble with their communication styles. And he was very quiet. She was very talkative. He must not have had very many language processing centers in his brain because he was just a very quiet person. And they were going on a road trip, and she was so excited. She said, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to have all this time to talk with him. We can talk about our relationship. We can talk about the kids. We can talk about all the issues, all the things." And she's just going to have his undivided attention. So they're driving down the road for a long time. They were going across several states. And after hours of silence, she said to him, "Honey, what are you thinking about?" And he said, "The telephone poles." And she said, "The telephone poles?" He said, "Yeah, I was just noticing how some are straight and some are slanted and wonder what caused that." And she was just baffled that that was what was going on in his brain. Many times when a woman talks to a man and says, "What are you thinking?" he'll say nothing, or the game, or the motorcycle, or whatever. There'll just be like one thought that he is thinking. And many times when somebody is interacting with another person and there is silence, we can misinterpret that. So I don't know if you've ever been at work and there has been silence between you and a colleague. And maybe there wasn't silence all the time, but maybe there starts to be silence. This can be challenging because it can feel like something is wrong. And many times, because of the ways that we're socialized, because of the ways that our brain works, we all of a sudden feel that there's danger. Uh-oh, there's danger here because why? Why would we think silence is dangerous? Well, when there is silence between somebody, what happens is our brain thinks something must be wrong and we feel disconnected. So if you think about a herd of animals, for example, antelope, if you think about antelope and one antelope just wanders off and is all alone away from the herd, what's the problem? It could find plenty of grass, right? There's nobody around to bother it. But what's the danger? Well, the lion is looking for the antelope that is off by itself. The animal knows that it's in danger when it leaves the herd, when it's by itself. So it's usually scanning and wanting to stay as close to the herd as possible because that's when it is most prone to attack and most prone to being killed. And that's exactly how the predators look for the animals is when they are alone because then they can attack. Otherwise, the herd of antelope can fight back and kick and they can trample the lion. So being isolated, being disconnected from the herd, our brain knows is danger. Even as a human, we know that when we are not part of a group, when we feel like we don't belong, when we feel disconnected in any way, our brain goes into alert. It goes into that amygdala that starts firing because fear is activated in us. So silence in a relationship can be triggering to people. And it takes a lot of intentional work to be able to recognize, oh, there may not be anything going on at all. I have talked to so many leaders who have, this has been a major issue, that when somebody is silent, maybe they make a proposal to someone and then there's silence. Uh-oh, they think it's terrible. All is lost. No, they're not going to do it. The next interaction that the person has when they feel fear can be different than if they felt confident, if they felt grounded. If I feel fear that all of a sudden you're going to reject me, or all of a sudden I don't belong in the organization, or my proposal's been rejected, and that might threaten my sense of belonging in the organization, or it might threaten my future in some way, maybe even my ability to provide for my family. There could be all kinds of fears that can be activated. Well, then the next time I interact with you, if I feel fear, I might say something different. My energy may come across differently, and the interaction could be very different than what I would want it to be ideally. So if I feel fear when that silence has happened, one of the things that I can do is to practice empathy for myself. So as an emotional intelligence leadership coach, I talk about how to regulate our emotions. And one of the things, a lot of times people say, I hear this word emotional intelligence, but what does it mean? So the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence are: number 1, self-awareness. So I recognize something is off within me. Sometimes it's a bodily sensation. Sometimes our chest feels tight, or our stomach feels tight, or maybe we feel our heart starts to pound, or our breathing gets more shallow. Sometimes we recognize it in our body first. Sometimes it's a thought that we have and we recognize, oh, they don't like me. And that thought then can cause us to feel a certain feeling. So the ability to be self-aware and to recognize those things, then the second pillar is to be able to have empathy for myself in those situations, to be able to show love to myself and help calm myself. The third pillar is to be socially aware, to be aware of others and what is going on with them. And so if we sense, something seems off with that person, they seem a little agitated. And then how do we then, in the fourth pillar, interact with them? How do we help them and show empathy for them? And the fifth pillar is, how motivated are we to learn these skills and to then progress in our ability to strengthen those relationships? So emotional intelligence is so important. One of the things that's interesting about emotional intelligence is this is something that we've known for a long time. We didn't use those words years ago, but we knew that social interaction was extremely important, in relationships at work and relationships between peers, as a leader with our team, relationships between the team and the customer. So we knew that relationships were extremely important. But when it came to the budget, many times people would say, we got to cut the training department out because we don't have enough funds, and the revenue's down, the numbers are down, so we got to cut somewhere. We're going to cut there. And they considered that a quote soft skill. And that was not it was not helpful, but nobody knew that at the time. Well, when they started doing studies to find out, actually, did it make a difference on the bottom line, not just in the relationships? Because they're like, yeah, that's great if people get along. That's great if the customer feels, important. But it's not impacting the bottom line. And we've got to be able to report to the shareholders. We've got to be able to make a profit to sustain the business. And so that was why that was cut. Well, the Harvard Business Review did a study where they studied emotional intelligence in the workplace. And what they found were fascinating conclusions. One was that emotional intelligence could be taught. There was a theory that it was just either you had it or you didn't. And if you didn't have it, well, then they would, that was just the way it was. Many times they thought, well, we'll have to look for that in an employee, but if somebody was already there and they didn't have it, they couldn't be taught that. So the Harvard Business Review found actually, yes, it can be taught. And as a leader, when the leader learns these skills, then they can also role model it for the team and help the team to learn these same skills. And as the team is taught the same principles, they can grow in their emotional intelligence. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But they also found that not only could it be taught, but that there were measurable results that happened. So it increased engagement. So if I am the leader and I have more emotional intelligence and I'm more aware of you and I'm more aware of myself, I'm going to lead differently. If I'm triggered and something has happened, and like say there's a crisis and I feel really triggered, I'm going to be able to lead differently because I will be able to have empathy for myself. I'll be able to regulate my emotions. I'll be able to come to the team and communicate in a way that I can help the team to feel safe. So psychological safety is very important. And when a person has very high emotional intelligence, they're better able to create psychological safety. Well, as a person in an organization feels that the leader cares about them, if the leader is showing empathy to them, if they are able to regulate their nervous system, they help me to regulate my nervous system. They help me to feel loved and cared about and wanted and needed and valued as a part of this team. Well, when I feel valued as part of this team, I contribute more. I am more engaged. I think, hey, I saw this problem over there on the line, and I think I'm going to go tell the leader because I know their door is open. I know they want to listen. I know that they are interested in what I have to say because they're interested in me. So I know that not only is there an open door policy, but I also know that I'm going to feel seen and heard and valued for my contribution. Well, if I feel seen and heard and valued for my contribution, I'm going to notice things differently. And I am going to want to share those things. There's positive reinforcement every time I share an idea that I have or a problem that I notice that needs to be solved. Well, as a leader, what a valuable resource, because I am not everywhere at all times, 24/7. I don't have eyes and ears everywhere to see everything that's going on. I rely on my team to share with me input and to help me to understand how we can improve and how we can be better. But if I have low emotional intelligence, that doesn't come across very well. I may not welcome those ideas. So as I grow in my emotional intelligence and I understand the impact of helping someone feel seen and heard and how I can show them that, there are so many subtle things that I can do as a leader to help a person to feel seen and heard, and to know authentically that I do care about them. Then as I am able to show that psychological safety, create that environment where someone feels safe, and that engagement increases, productivity increases, because I feel more invested in this team, in this product, in this service, in this company. I am more committed to what is going on. So there's increased engagement, there's increased productivity, and that relates to increased profitability. In addition, when the customer feels cared about and valued, when I learn emotional intelligence skills as a team member and I say, "Hi Sam, how you doing? Great to see you again. How was your anniversary? I know you and your wife went on a cruise last month. How was it? Tell me about it." I'm like, "Wow, the team knows me. They know me by name. They know about me. They remember things about me, and they care about what I'm doing." If I have a problem and I talk to someone that has high emotional intelligence, they're not going to shame me for having the problem. "Well, you should have read the instructions better," or "you should have done XYZ." They're going to say, "Oh, I can see how frustrating that is. Let me see how I can help you to resolve that. Let's look at that together." There's going to be a different response when a team member has empathy for the customer. And when I, as a customer, feel that you care about me and you care about my problem that I'm bringing to you, I have more loyalty. I'm more engaged. I may tell you ideas about how you could improve things at your company. You know those little comment cards? Many times people give comments, and those comments are implemented because they are very helpful. It's a fresh set of eyes that sees the problem differently. So as we learned that emotional intelligence was very valuable and impacted the bottom line, then companies were able to justify spending that money on that training and to continue that training to sustain those skills, because we all need to be reminded of these things. So empathy is very, very important. Empathy for ourselves and empathy for others. So I want to talk a little bit more about regulating our nervous system as a leader. So for example, if there is something has happened, maybe the numbers are down, and my neck's on the chopping block, and I know that they're going to say, "Karen, you got to fix this." And I'm feeling stressed about the whole thing. And I go into a meeting with the team. If I go in with those feelings and those thoughts in my head, and I have not worked to regulate my nervous system, I may come across from a place of fear. I may come across feeling very stressed. Well, what happens, I don't know if you've ever been in an organization or in a room with a group of people and somebody comes in that is stressed. Have you seen how it impacts the whole group? Have you felt it yourself? Sometimes we can just feel like, uh-oh, something's wrong. That person is feeling agitated, irritated, something, stressed. And then that can cause us to feel something uncomfortable within ourselves. That's because our brain is wired for connection with another person. The mirror neurons in my brain are lighting up because all of a sudden the other person's emotional and physical state is impacting mine, because we're wired for connection. We are wired to be one, and we're wired to not be separate. So as I feel those emotions of the other person, that does impact me. And and I then can feel discomfort. My emotions can escalate. I can start to feel stress. Well, if you're feeling stressed and I'm feeling stressed, then the stress starts rising in the group. One of the things that, as I mentioned, happens is we all go offline. So Dan Siegel gave this term where we flip our lid. We aren't able to access our prefrontal cortex, and our emotions, because they're escalated, then cause us to go to where our amygdala is hijacked. That's another term that people use, where the amygdala is firing, and all of the resources in our brain go to the amygdala area. So that what happens then is none of us can think logically at that moment. None of us are able, if all of us are escalated, then all of us are not able to access our prefrontal cortex where our values lie, where our logic lies, where our higher thinking, the compassion, the empathy are available to us in the prefrontal cortex. We are not able to hear the same way. We can't even hear with our ears physiologically the same way when we are escalated. We can't see things the same because our body is wired to protect us. Our brain is protecting us from danger. So it closes down. Well, if we are trying to solve a problem, if numbers are down and all of a sudden we've got an emergency meeting, the thing that we need the most is to brainstorm, right? We need to be able to find a solution. We need to be able to even think out of the box. We need to be able to be creative because whatever has been going on hasn't been working. We need some new ideas or some new ways to implement the old ideas. Well, that's fascinating to me because when we feel psychologically safe, when we feel cared about, our brain opens to possibilities. The ability to be creative, to be innovative, takes the ability to access our prefrontal cortex. So we have to be able to regulate our nervous system to be innovative. So when you think about innovation right now, what's the first word that comes to your mind? For me, the first word that comes to my mind, besides creativity, is AI. I think about how AI is one of the cutting edge innovations right now. Well, learning a new skill, learning to use AI, to implement AI, and to incorporate AI or to develop a system with AI that would help a company requires innovation. It requires creativity. I don't know about you, but if you were ever in school and you were struggling with a subject and you said, I can't do it, I can't do it. I remember I have coached children who felt this way. I can't do math. I just can't do it. And their brains close down because they feel fear, because they feel like they're failing. But if they say, I'll figure it out, I can figure this out. My brain is so smart. I can figure this out. I just need more practice. Then their brain is open and all of a sudden their brain fires differently. Well, it's the same thing with adults. When we feel like, uh-oh, I have no idea how to do it. This is beyond me. I don't understand it. Can't do it. Don't want it. Don't like it. Our brain shuts down. If we feel fear, uh-oh, AI might take my job. Uh-oh, if I don't learn how to do this, I might lose my job. Then we don't have the same ability to even learn about that. If we don't feel safe, if we feel criticized, if we feel threatened in some way because of stress that's going on, then we may not be able to learn even if we want to. We may not be able to access the prefrontal cortex that gives us the ability to be innovative and creative. So those are some very interesting aspects as far as why emotional intelligence is so important and so important for the leader to know and for the leader to emulate to the whole team. If I come into that meeting and numbers are down and I'm stressed, but first I take a moment to ground myself and to feel safe myself and to have empathy for myself. It's okay, Karen. It's understandable. So these are some of the things that I teach people to say that have helped me because I have had to work on regulating my nervous system my whole life. This is not something that I have just taught to people in the business world. This is a life lived experience that I have used for my whole life because I was born premature, 2.5 months early, and I was in an incubator for that 2.5 months all alone. Back in those days, my mother couldn't hold me, she couldn't touch me, she couldn't feed me, nurse me, cuddle me, nothing. They had these big, thick rubber gloves that if they wanted to hold me, they held me with that. The only person that could hold me was the nurse because it was a sterile environment. In fact, the little incubator that I was put in was called an isolette, and I was isolated. Well, what did that do to my brain? That caused my brain to feel that there was danger out there. And I came away from that with anxiety. I had a lot of fears growing up. I still have fears. And many times my brain defaults to the old way of thinking. And when those fears come up to me and I feel disconnected, I feel a lot of fear. And so I have to work to regulate my nervous system so that my energy, so that the way that I interact with others is the best version of myself. And if I'm not ready, then I show myself empathy and compassion and say, it's okay. You can take the time you need to ground yourself first. Well, as a leader, that's very, very important because, as I mentioned with the mirror neurons, if I come into this situation and I am calm and I am feeling grounded, I don't have to have the solution for the problem that's going on. I just have to have the confidence that we will be able to figure this out together. So I may come to the team and I may say, numbers are down, and I'm going to be authentic and I'm going to be honest and I'm going to be vulnerable and let them know what I am able to share with them at the time. I may say, I'm feeling a little stressed right now because, we have this situation going on and we need to bring the numbers up. Well, that's a very different energy that comes across because one, being vulnerable and being authentic automatically causes people to feel more connected to me. And as people feel more connected to me and they care, oh, what's going on? Like I mentioned, they will feel more empathy and they will feel more invested in as a team member if the foundation has been laid where they already feel seen and heard. So as I come to that meeting and I reveal whatever I am comfortable revealing at the time, maybe I could even just say I feel really stressed right now, but I want to have this meeting about this thing. Whatever it is that I feel that I can share at that moment. And then people are listening and I say, let's talk about what we can do. And then we brainstorm together. That also helps because my mirror neurons are now going to activate your mirror neurons where if you felt some stress, you are going to calm yourself and de-escalate. And it doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it happens layer by layer by layer, thought by thought by thought. Maybe the first thought is, it's okay if I feel this stress. And the second thought might be, we're going to work together to find a solution. There are thoughts that help us to come down. So as we de-escalate our emotions, and then we say, let's talk about what we can do. Everyone is in a condition where they can access their prefrontal cortex better than they would if I came across very stressed, very anxious, maybe with, all right, everybody, you've got to get the numbers up. If I'm coming across with that kind of energy that's forceful, that's demanding, that is abrasive, that can cause fear and that can cause people to then shut down. So my goal as a leader is one, to be self-aware of what is going on within me, to regulate my emotions and to show empathy to myself so that I can do that. And then I am able to be aware of you. What is going on with you? Maybe when we come to that meeting and numbers are down and I see the fear in your eyes and I see the body language and the ways that you are responding, then I have empathy for you as a leader. And then once again, we co-regulate emotions with each other because as I show empathy to you, you're able to then de-escalate your emotions. And so it's so interesting how this goes back and forth between each other and raises the consciousness. When we talk about consciousness and being able to be more connected with each other, that is one of the main ways that we do that is through emotional intelligence. So as we feel more connected, we feel like a team. We feel like we're working together. You've probably seen the movie about the how they're rowing and they're in sync, and when they're out of sync, how their timing is totally off. But when they get in sync, it's so fascinating how fast they can go. And the same thing is happening with a team. When we are in sync with each other, when we are lifting and building and having empathy for each other, we can encourage each other more and we can come up with those solutions that are much more beneficial. Well, in the female and male brain, many times there are differences that can take place. So, for example, in a male brain, that silence may mean that that the man is processing. Maybe that is how he is then trying to calm himself. Maybe he is actually brainstorming within himself. Whereas the woman may be in a point where she feels something, a trigger about something, and she wants to talk about it. So she's brainstorming out loud. He's maybe brainstorming within his brain. So in a team, when is a male and a female, and they are doing things differently, understanding each other and understanding how each other operates then helps us to be able to have empathy for each other. So I'm fascinated by that impact because if as a female, I come to you as a man and I say, okay, the numbers are down. I just got the report. I'm really concerned about this. And I start telling you all the emotions that I feel, all the thoughts that I have, the worries, the concerns, and I'm trying to, in practice, regulate my nervous system. The man may hear, uh-oh, she is so worried about all of these things. There is danger. And his emotions may escalate immediately, and he may have an increase in cortisol where he feels danger. And if he feels that there's danger, he may do something different than he would if he felt safe. So if he feels danger, he may shut the woman down. He may say, it's going to be fine. Have you ever received the stop sign? It'll be fine. Well, what does that do? That may cause the woman to feel like, he doesn't want to hear what I have to say. He doesn't even care about how I feel. I have all these emotions and he doesn't even want to hear about it. A woman may misinterpret that to think that she's not valued as part of the team because she's not even allowed to express herself, which is a very natural thing that her brain will do in stress. The man, because he may feel that there's danger, because he may be feeling uncomfortable, because his emotions are escalated, because the mirror neurons are being activated in his brain as well. He's gone to his amygdala. He's not thinking with his highest version in his prefrontal cortex. He may not even be aware of how that stop sign comes across. He may just think, stop, just stop, because he may not be able to deal with the uncomfortable feelings within himself. Well, if I understand that I need to come to the man in a different way, maybe I need to come and say, I've got a lot of concerns. I just got the report. I found out that the numbers are down. Is this a good time for me to talk with you about this? If I pre-frame that, just ask, is this a good time? He may say, yeah, I've got 15 minutes. Or if I say, I really want to talk to you about my concerns about this, he may say, this really isn't a good time. Maybe he's already dealing with something and he knows that he's not in a good place. Maybe he's in that zone where he's silently trying to figure something out. So if he said, this really isn't a good time. I'm working on another project right now. Could you come back in half an hour and let's talk? Well, then she knows he does want to hear from me. This isn't that he doesn't want to hear from me. And so when she comes back, then if she is able to say, I'd like to just tell you some of the thoughts that I have about it. I'm not ready to solve the problem yet. I would just like to have you be a sounding board where we could maybe brainstorm together. Is this, something that you're comfortable doing? Well, then he knows, oh, she doesn't need me to fix this problem. Whew, relief. And so then he is able to listen differently. He de-escalates just by hearing that because he knows there's no danger that he has to solve. So the ability to have emotional intelligence impacts us greatly as the differences between genders, as the difference between the way that men and women think, and the difference between the way that we process the things that we're dealing with. So if I am the kind that wants to talk about all those things, if I just give the other person a pre-framing of what I am about to do and that they don't have to solve anything, I can create a much safer environment for the other person, which then creates a team effort between the two of us. So then the other person can just listen and say, great, okay, are you ready for some feedback? Would you like to find some solutions now? No, not yet. I'm not ready yet. So we have this high emotional intelligence training between the different members of the team, the interactions are different and the questions are different and the psychological safety is different. The team operates at a higher capacity because of the emotional intelligence that has been taught. The genders communicate better so that each other hears the other and both feel safe. The men feel safe, the women feel safe, and they understand each other better. They offer more grace to each other because they give each other the benefit of the doubt and they show love to themselves first and take responsibility for that rather than looking for outside validation all the time. So leadership really is love in action because as I show love to myself first, I am better able to regulate my nervous system and I am better able to lead from a place where I can access my prefrontal cortex. And then as I am able to be more aware of you and help you by showing empathy to you, you feel psychologically safe. You are able to regulate your emotions better. And as we all are regulated, we feel greater empathy for each other. And we feel more invested and more committed to the mission, to the team, to the purpose, and to the goal. This is very impactful. And as the Harvard Business Review revealed, this increases engagement, productivity, and profitability and loyalty. And as I feel more loyal as a customer, guess what I do? I go tell everyone. I talked to Karen and she actually solved my problem. You'll never believe it. If you have that, you dealt with that over there and they just said, it's your own problem. Too bad. Oh, you only got a bot? You didn't get to talk to a human? Let me tell you about Karen. You have got to go do business with Karen. And the word of mouth is the secret sauce of marketing. It's the greatest power because there's a testimonial right there from that client to another potential client. And when that client feels cared about, their testimonials are powerful. And that's how we grow. That's how we scale our business in the most effective way. So I encourage you, if you would like to learn more about how to use emotional intelligence in your leadership, if you would like to teach that to your team, if you would like to have more training on this, I'm Karen Hall. I'm an emotional intelligence leadership coach, and I have a free gift for you on how to calm your nervous system in 60 seconds. Actually, it can be done if you know the tools. So I encourage you to look me up on LinkedIn. I'm Karen Hall, Queen of Empathy. My clients gave me that name. I did not come up with that name. And I encourage you to take advantage of my free gift. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen, for sharing your message with all of us today and for being part of the Stronger Together Summits community. Karen and I first connected about a year and a half ago through the Los Angeles Tribune community. Since then, I have had the opportunity to watch the incredible way that she continues to create platforms and opportunities that elevate women leaders from around the world. She's, like I mentioned before in her bio, she's the editor in chief of the Women's Journal. She has helped spotlight and amplify the voices of hundreds of women across industries and experiences. And one of the things I most appreciate about her is that she genuinely lives the message that she teaches. She was reminding us today that leadership is not just about achievement or visibility. It's about how we help people feel seen, how we help them feel valued, encouraged, and empowered. So Karen, thank you again for sharing your wisdom, your leadership, and your heart with us today. For everyone who's joining, I encourage you to scan the QR code on the screen, use the link in the chat to access Karen's free gift, and continue learning from her work and her community. You can also connect with her on LinkedIn, follow these conversations and the opportunities that she is creating for women leaders around the world. And as always, if you have any questions or reflections, place them in the Q&A box throughout the summit to get a response from the speaker that you designate in there. So thank you again, Karen, for coming today, for speaking to all of us.